Welcome to the Notification Appliance Circuit Extender Power Supplies course presented by Eaton. This e-learning course provides information about Eaton's POWERPATH NAC extenders. Both the 6-amp and the 8-amp versions are covered. Emphasis is on features, capabilities, and installation setup. Connections to board level are discussed as well as aspects such as switch settings and correct power-up, power-down procedures. Extensive troubleshooting is covered. This presentation is technical in nature.
This presentation is not a substitute for the installation and maintenance manual for the NAC extenders or the expansion modules PS-EXP. The purpose of this presentation is to familiarize you with this product and its capabilities. Always use the manual for installation, operation, maintenance, and troubleshooting procedures.
The POWERPATH PS8 NAC extender power supply is available with different options. Although the PS6 was discontinued, it is covered in this overview. The PS8 differs from the PS6 in the NAC output current and in the enclosure size. All other features, indicators, and capacities are the same.
The PS8 is an 8-amp, 24-volt DC filtered and regulated, supervised remote power supply charger used for expanded power driving capability for fire alarm notification appliance circuits. Here are some of the features. It may be connected to any 12-volt or 24-volt DC fire alarm control panel by using notification appliance circuits or dry contacts. Primary applications include NAC expansion and auxiliary power to support system accessories. The PS8 provides filtered and regulated 24 volts DC for up to 4 Class B, 2 Class A, or 2 Class B and 1 Class A notification appliance circuits. Optional expansion module PS-EXP provides an optional 4 Class B or 2 Class A circuits and/or combinations of these. Note: a NAC output can be as high as 3 amps. However, the total current output used by this NAC expansion power supply cannot exceed its rated output of 8 amps. Additionally, an auxiliary power output can provide constant power of up to 0.2 amps for 24 hours and up to 0.06 amps for 60 hours, or managed power up to 3.5 amps in non-alarm condition and when AC power is applied to the panel. The PS8 also contains a battery charger capable of charging up to 33 amp hours of battery backup. The PS6 is a 6-amp, 24 volts DC filtered and regulated, supervised remote power supply charger used for expanded power driving capability for fire alarm notification appliance circuits. Here are some of the features. It may be connected to any 12-volt DC or 24 volts DC fire alarm control panel by using notification appliance circuits or dry contacts. Primary applications include NAC expansion and auxiliary power to support system accessories. The PS6 provides filtered and regulated 24 volts DC for up to 4 Class B, 2 Class A, or 2 Class B and 1 Class A notification appliance circuits. Optional expansion module PS-EXP provides an additional 4 Class B or 2 Class A circuits and combinations of these. Note: a NAC output can be as high as 3 amps. However, the total current output used by this NAC expansion power supply cannot exceed its rated output of 6 amps. Additionally, an auxiliary power output can provide constant power of up to 0.2 amps for 24 hours and up to 0.06 amps for 60 hours, or managed power up to 3.5 amps in a non-alarm condition and when AC power is applied to the panel. The PS6 also contains a battery charger capable of charging up to 33 amp hours of battery backup. The power supply terminals include AC input, the AC loss Form C relay connections, and battery connections. The control board terminals include NAC and dry contact inputs, sync S-bus, audible silence NAC input, trouble relay output, auxiliary output, and NAC outputs. Inputs are for 120 volts AC, 50 to 60 Hertz, 4 amps at full rated output in alarm, 24 volt DC battery backup connection, 2 NAC initiating circuits, 2 dry contact open initiating circuits, provision for 2 Class A or 2 Class B circuit inputs, and built-in battery charger for sealed lead acid or gel-type batteries. The outputs are 24 volt DC, filtered, regulated, and power limited. The PS8 provides 8 amps in alarm, and the PS6 provides 6 amps in alarm. Both units provide 4 Class B circuits, or 2 Class A circuits, or 1 Class A circuit and 2 Class B circuits. Option of temporal code 3 or constant voltage output. Built-in wheel-lock synchronization mode that can be fed to any or all of the output circuits. Input and output can be synchronized with in-follower mode. There's also audible silence capability. 0.06 amp continuous auxiliary power for 60 hours on battery backup, which is power limited with reset capability. 0.2 amp continuous auxiliary power for 24 hours on battery backup, which is power limited with reset capability. 3.5 amps managed auxiliary power in non-alarm and non-loss of AC power. Multiple power supplies can be synchronized through the S-bus terminals. These power supplies are compatible with 12 volt or 24 volt fire alarm control panels. Signaling appliance loops are supervised and steered to either input 1 or input 2. 10K ohm 1 watt end-of-the-line resistor for supervision of all NAC outputs. Common input and output trouble circuits. Automatic switchover to standby battery when AC fails. Short circuit protection with auto reset. Input and output status LED indicators. AC fail supervision. Battery presence and low battery supervision. And ground fault detection. The Power Supply Expander Module, PS-EXP, expands the power supply outputs to a maximum of 4 Class A or 8 Class B circuits. The PS-EXP module is mounted on top of the control PC board directly above the output terminals. The control PC board has a series of dip switches that are used to program the operation of the NAC extender. Each output is controlled independently from the other NAC outputs. For example, NAC 1 and NAC 2 can be set for Class A, while NAC 3 and NAC 4 can be set to Class B. Each output can be energized by individually selecting input 1 or input 2. Each output can provide wheel-lock sync or temporal output. The PS-EXP expansion module also has a set of dip switches used to control its function. Here's an operation setup example. Basic settings on the control PC board for a 4 NAC Class B circuit output controlled by input 1 and with the additional requirements of wheel-lock sync, auxiliary power in the constant power mode, and ground fault detection. Set the switches as follows. All switches, positions 1 to 4, are set to the left. Now let's talk about applying power to the power supply panel. Always apply AC power before applying battery power. Always remove battery power before removing AC power. Failure to do so can cause damage to the power supply components. Connect the AC source. The AC source shall be a dedicated non-switched power source. Connect the backup batteries. Observe correct polarity and voltage. Use 2 of the same size batteries connected in series as shown here. Up to 33 ampere-hour batteries may be used, depending on circuit loading. The PS-8 enclosure can accommodate two 12-volt DC batteries up to 12 ampere-hour in size. Batteries larger than 12 ampere-hours must be stored in a separate battery enclosure, such as the Wheelock BATC battery enclosure. The PS6 enclosure can accommodate two 12-volt DC batteries up to 7 ampere-hour in size. Batteries larger than 7 ampere-hours must be stored in a separate battery enclosure, such as the Wheelock BATC battery enclosure. The LED indicators on the power supply battery charger PC board and on the control PC board are used to signal the operating condition of the NAC expander. The amber LED indicators always indicate a trouble condition. If an amber LED indicator is on, go to the troubleshooting section of the manual for resolution. The power supply board LED indicators include AC loss, AC power, trouble, charger trouble, battery trouble, and battery power. This table shows the trouble order of priority on the control PC board. When the highest priority trouble is cleared, the next highest, if any, will be indicated using the 5 LED sequence. Here are examples of trouble LED patterns on the control PC board. A full breakdown of these patterns are listed in the troubleshooting section of the manual. In this example, LED D6 and LED D4 are illuminated. This indicates a NAC2 output open. The procedure is to check output 2 terminals for good connections, check NAC circuit wiring for continuity, check NAC circuit for the 10K ohm end-of-line resistor. With no LEDs illuminated, this condition means no faults. An illuminated LED D7 and D5 indicates a NAC4 output short. The procedure is to check for a wiring short. Check for a shorted or improperly wired NAC appliance. For example, if an appliance is wired plus to negative and negative to plus, a short trouble will be indicated. An illuminated D7, D6, and D4 indicates aux output current limit trouble. The procedure is to reduce the number of NAC appliances on aux out. A ground fault is always indicated by illumination of D3. In this example, D8, D6, D4, and D3 indicate a ground fault NAC2 output on the positive leg. The procedure is to check for circuit wire to enclosure or conduit. When D3 is on, momentarily press switch 5 and read the coded LED indicators for the location of the ground fault. Locating a ground fault on the power path is simple. In this example, all LEDs except D7 are illuminated. This indicates a ground fault NAC trouble on output circuit 3 on the positive leg. In the second example, a ground fault is indicated on aux output on the negative leg. Let's move on now to the power supply expander, the PS-EXP. The expander module is designed to plug into both the PS6 and the PS8. It provides the capability for an additional 2 Class A NAC circuits or 4 Class B NAC circuits. Each of the now total 4 Class A NAC circuits has the capability of handling up to 3 amps of current. Each of the now total 8 Class B NAC circuits has the capability of handling up to 3 amps of current. The module is located on the lower right corner of the control board. The PS-EXP dip switches are similar and perform the same functions for the outputs as do the NAC extender dip switches. There are 4 sets of output terminals and a full complement of LED indicators for trouble, alarm, power, and general trouble. D2 through D6 are trouble indicators producing a coded pattern identifying the problem area. D7 turns on when the expansion module is in the alarm condition. Troubleshooting is straightforward. For example, with no LEDs lit, this means no fault. The illumination of LEDs D2 through D5 indicate a NAC1 output short. If a ground fault condition exists on the expansion board, the ground fault LED D3 will light on the control board. Identifying a ground fault condition on the PS-EXP is done by momentarily pressing switch 5 on the control board and reading the coded LED indicators on the expansion board. Here's an example. When pressing switch 5 and D5 lights up, this indicates a trouble on the NAC3 output negative leg. The illumination of D5 and D6 indicates a ground fault on the NAC4 positive. Now let's look at NAC extender example connections. The following are examples of switch settings and connections for common setup conditions. A complete series of examples can be found in the NAC extender manual and in the PS-EXP installation sheet. Here's an example of normal Class B operating mode with 4 NAC circuits. Normal Class A operating mode offers 2 Class A circuits. With the proper switch settings, wheel-lock sync mode is enabled. Using only 2 wires, wheel-lock horn strobes incorporate audible silence while maintaining strobe flash. Audible silence is accomplished by applying a NAC input to the silence terminals. Here's an example of the PS-EXP set for wheel-lock sync, audible silence, and Class A.
Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to your local sales manager, or you can email us at lifesafety@eaton.com.